So I finally got around to shooting a couple videos the other night of my pulley configuration. Unfortunately, I watched them today, or at least attempted to, and when I woke up halfway through it, I realized that I rambled on. It was boring as all hell, and I figured I'd just reshoot it to shorten it up some. So, I got everything apart here. This is the top of the CNC X3 mill. This is the Grizzly model G0463. I've had this one for about a year. It's been converted to CNC for about the last 4 months. I have, on Mock says I have about 600 and I think 50, 60 something hours of on time. I grossly estimate that to be about half actual spindle on time. This was the very first thing that I ever did when I converted the CNC. Literally, this was the first thing I ever programmed. I'll show you what that is. So I would guesstimate that I've got probably around 300 plus hours of spindle on time, and at least 95% of that has been in my high-speed spindle orientation, running generally between 2850 and 4800 RPMs. Occasionally I'll bump it up to 5700 if I'm doing some engraving or something like that. But I'll just give you a real quick idea of how this works. Essentially these two shafts are the same size, so I just figured, what the hell, why not just pull it apart and flip them over, and that'll double the speed. It works, and it works effectively. There's only two things that you need to do to make this work. One, you're going to need some sort of standoff, because when you take these off, you literally just pick it up, flip it upside down, smack it on there. When you put the smaller spindle, the smaller sprocket onto the gearbox side, it's going to fall right into the gearbox. So you need some sort of standoff to raise that up out of there. I'm not going to throw out a bunch of the measurements and numbers on here unless someone specifically asks me to, because reality is, if you're going to try this, by God, measure your own mill, because it is made by the Sieg, and reality is they're not holding real tight tolerances. So measure your own, figure out what you need. It's real simple to do. Basically all I did was just cut the outer shape so that it was a little bit wider than the sprocket. You can see the shape of the sprocket where it sits on there. I drilled a hole through the center. Actually, I might have interpreted it, I don't remember. The keyway scared the heck out of me. I went through all kinds of things thinking it was going to be a lot harder than it was. I ended up just drilling 2 small holes towards the radius of those outside corners, and then cutting the rest out with an 1/8 inch in a mill as deep as it would go. And then I just took a small file to the rest of it. It really wasn't half as hard as I thought it would be. The 3 holes around the outside are not being utilized. The original intention here was to drill and tap 3 holes into the sprocket, bolt this onto there so that it was nice and rigid and it could transfer forces through the keyway from the standoff to the sprocket. Because when you do flip these, the sprocket is sitting up fairly high on that keyway. I have not done that yet. I haven't gotten around to it. I actually have an extra one of those the caps, and I got an extra one of the sprockets. The reality is there's absolutely 0 signs of wear within the sprocket from the key, and there's very, 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 very minimal signs of wear on the key. So I really haven't seen the justification to spend the time or energy to do that. Maybe I'm just lazy. I don't know. It's your call. But with the way that this has worked out so far, I haven't had any problems. I have done some fairly heavy hogging in the higher gears. There's not as much torque. It is easier to stall the spindle. I have stalled the spindle. I've blown fuses. But every single time that I've done that, it was through generally input error into the DROs or into the coding, where crashing a 7/16 inch V in mill 1.5 inches into 60/61 at 40 inches a minute, that'll stall the spindle pretty quick. So I'll show you how this works. It's real simple. I've already got the circlip off the top here. I've already taken the screw off the top here. All I'm going to do is just slide this orientation off. Slide that top piece out of there, and essentially all I'm going to do is just flip them over, and that's how they're going to go on, is exactly like that. Now I take this guy, drop him onto here, first, that gives me the height that I need, which will give me a nice flat plane across. When I first did this, the larger pulley was sitting too high on here, and the top of the smaller sprocket was touching the bottom of the drive gear. So to get it just a little bit lower, all I did was just, you see some very fine craftsmanship here. This isn't patented. You can also use a Dremel to destroy metal. All I did was just ground down this inside edge right above the keyway so that when I set this on there, it can sit down around that circlip. So you can see when I drop this on, putting the key in helps. So when I drop that on, you see it actually locks right onto that circlip. Obviously a circlip's not driving the thing, but the key is. So all we have to do is put that guy on here. These are going on in just an upside down configuration. So just slide straight down like this. This guy's not going to be used, the circlip's not going to be used, everything else just gets transferred over. The spacer that was on the bottom of the sprocket, I put onto the top over here. If you wanted to do it the right way, would probably be to machine your own washer that would have a small inside hole to keep it a little bit more concentric. Again, I haven't had a problem with it. There's not enough forces involved here for it to be something that needs to be, you know, that concentric. I mean, I can put it on there and just squeeze both sides of the pulley, and that's more than good enough for what this is actually going to be doing. So now all we have to do, tighten that guy down, smack this guy back on there, same orientation that he was in, lock it in, throw this on. The only thing you'll notice that I'm sure someone will comment on if I don't do it, there is no circlip on here with this orientation. Again, if you wanted to do it the right way, you would remake this sprocket and this sprocket. You would make it so it's, you know, similar to this on the small sprocket, but all three are attached. The top cap is attached to the sprocket is attached to the spacer on the bottom, the keyways are lined up across it, so you're transferring more force across. On this side, you would lop off this top piece here just below that circlip, so you can put the circlip back on, and that way you can just pop them off, grab your two other ones, smack them on, you're done. Throw the circlip on, throw your screw in, you know you're nice and safe and secure. Out of the hundreds of hours that I've run this, I ran it for probably the first 15 hours with the top off, and this actually zip tied up there so that you know, I could watch everything and see what was happening. Out of all the times that I've run this, I've never had the large one walk up. Your mileage may vary, it may fly up, kill your neighbor, kill your dog, kill your cat, put a hole in your forehead, I don't know. So it's your call if you want to do it this way. I would recommend lopping that off, buying a second orientation. It's only going to cost about, you could replace this entire upper assembly, everything here, for about $15-25 from Little Machine Shop. So lop that off, put the circlip back on there. That'll hold this down securely. I've got obviously a little bit longer, and I like the socket head cap screws. I think these had the countersunk screws when I got them, which I personally hate using a 2mm Allen for anything, or 2.5, whatever it actually was. So we just tighten those guys down, turn the mill back on, fire it up. Now we're good. Right now this will run in high gear, it'll run 5,600 RPMs, actually 57. In low gear it'll run 2850. One thing I have found, I don't know why, I don't know how, I haven't asked because I really don't care. If I have my setup locked in pulley configuration 4 in Mach 3, which is programmed for that 5700 as a top speed, it'll run at 5700. Theoretically, if I switch that to drive 3, 2, or 1, and I put it at maximum speed, theoretically it should still run at 5700. It doesn't. It runs a little bit lower in the lower configurations, which I really don't understand, because I would expect the signal to the KBIC 125 to maintain the same output voltage to the motor, which would in theory maintain the same speed, but it doesn't. If none of that makes sense to you, sorry for rambling there. that's it. I've got a couple other videos that I already shot. The only difference you'll see is that the washer on this side was this washer here. I just realized or remembered that I had that extra one that actually works as a spacer over here. Before I was using a thrust washer half, or thrust bearing half from the old evil hand wheels that came on here, but just tonight I remembered that I had that, so I threw that on there. Other than that, everything's pretty straightforward. If you got any questions, go ahead and shoot them, and talk to you later. Just finished putting everything back together. We'll go ahead and fire mock back up. Let's see. Put the spindle, or put the gearbox on low. Make sure that should be reset. So put it back to 100,000 RPM. See where we fall. So kick it into high gear, and same thing. So in the higher speeds, you're definitely going to get some a lot more heat into the bearings. I've found that they do run a heck of a lot smoother when they're hot. I mean, right now it's still pretty cold, and when I spin it, it'll make it about 1.5 times around. You can feel some clicking in the bearings there. Once it heats up, that's all completely gone. So I wouldn't run it that way for 2 hours again. I did it one time, got a little bit hotter than what I would prefer it to be after seeing all the fiascos of everybody changing their spindle bearings. I got a feeling I'm just going to run this dead into the ground and then buy a new spindle with upgraded, the better bearings. Because realistically, it's only about $135 from a little machine shop to get the quill and the inner spindle, and then throw the bearings, gut the rest of this off, throw it over. So, you're talking about $200 to have a completely brand new spindle and quill with new, much higher quality bearings and better grease. I think those bearings, there's lots of threads on CNC Zone about them, but a lot of those bearings are rated to 5,000 RPMs with grease, 9,000 RPM under oil, which obviously we're not going to be able to run on this little machine without some pretty massive creativity. I actually have thought about how to do it, but just don't see the justification. So these 3 little parts here get set onto the shelf. The rest of the tools get put away back where they go. That's pretty much it. I'll shoot one more quick video and throw it into time lapse to not make you actually stare at it, but I'll time it because I've always wondered how long this takes anyway. So that's